Thank you, everyone, for joining us for what we consider and call our Tech Talks live event. This has been a monthly event that we've been holding since I believe, April of 2020. So have two really great partners that are with us here. And we'll cover a few things, and then we'll do some introductions. But this is the 8x8 meeting platform. If you haven't used it, there's some buttons that you'll be using to raise hand, chat, mute, unmute your camera. You can change your view by clicking on the four squares at the bottom there. But if you're not seeing anything, move your mouse across the screen, and you'll see this appear. Again, huge thank you to our sponsors. We have Tierpoint and COMMSCOPE, Ruckus, and we're going to talk about probably that name.
Terrence? Yes. Yeah, I'll touch on that.
All right. So
our identity crisis, I will touch on that, Joe.
All right. So actually, Terrence, if you want to kick it off, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So hello, everyone. My name is Terrence Sullivan. I am the Territory Account Manager for Ruckus Networks out of New England. So, and I also have Gene Nowitzki on, who is my Senior Systems Engineer. I'm going to give a little bit of a high level about who Ruckus is. I'll touch on the name as well. And then Gene is going to jump into some of the things that have been happening, as we've all been removed from offices and schools, with regards to technology advances with Wi-Fi 6. But just to touch on the name real quick, so thanks for bringing that up, Joe. So if anybody's familiar with Ruckus Networks, we've had a unique last few years with regards to acquisitions. None of these things, by the way, were negative business impacts. It was all technology purchases. So basically, Ruckus itself started as a standalone Wi-Fi company back in the early 2000s. We were through some acquisitions with Aris, who you might know as your cable set-top box.
Hey, Terrence.
Yep.
I'm going to interrupt. We're just doing some intros first, okay?
Oh, sorry. Oh, my bad.
Yep. Yeah, no worries. If you wouldn't mind, stop sharing, and I'll reshare a couple more slides, okay?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Let me rewind. Terrence Sullivan, Territory Manager, New England with Ruckus Networks.
There you go. Gene, if you want to say good morning.
So I'm Gene Nowitzki. I'm a Senior Systems Engineer at Ruckus, CommScope, and I'm usually the one that keeps Terrence in check. I just kind of missed that one. Sorry.
Perfect. Brandon, if you want to say good morning.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Brandon Keeley, Senior Account Executive at Tierpoint. I reside in New Hampshire, beautiful Londonderry, and happy to be here today. So thank you. And joined with Tara Kovaleski. I'll let Tara do her introduction.
Good morning, Tara Kovaleski. I'm a solutions architect with Tierpoint. I'm based out of Bucks County, Pennsylvania, just a little bit north of Philadelphia.
All right, fantastic. And then we have a few people from corporate data. Christy is not here. She is in sunny Florida right now, visiting some family. But Kelly, I'll let you say good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kelly Kucher, Senior Client Specialist at Corporate Data, and appreciate you attending, and happy holidays.
Excellent. Pete?
Hi, guys. Pete Lankarge here. I'm down in Rhode Island, and I'm a Client Specialist with Corporate Data. And yeah, happy holidays to everybody, and thanks for being here.
Excellent. And Rachel?
Hello, everyone. Rachel Neary, Corporate Data. Nice to see everyone, and thanks for joining.
Awesome. All right, so our agenda, pretty quick, pretty straightforward. So we'll do a little intro as I'm doing between the 11 and about 10 past the hour. I'll turn it over to Ruckus, that's where Terrence will take over and let us know all about name changes and all that great stuff. Then Tierpoint will take over for 30 minutes. We'll finish it up with Q&A and raffles. So a couple of housekeeping items. While the presenters are presenting, please mute your microphone and videos during the presentations. What we find is it's a little less distracting for the group. We are recording this session, so we will be sending out the link to this session, as well as some previous sessions that we've had. You might find some of the previous sessions that we've been putting on interesting, so you can share that link with folks that you think would be applicable. Each attendee that will be present at the end of the presentation will receive a Grubhub, or I think it's Grubhub card today. Names will be drawn at the end for two $50, I think it's $50 gift cards. Hate to put you on the spot, but Brandon, what are you folks doing for a giveaway?
We're gonna do a gift card as well. Yeah, Amazon gift card.
Okay, and Terrence?
Yep, just a Visa gift card.
Okay, a Visa card. So you have to be present to win. But what we are doing is we'll put your name in the hat, if you will, if you're here and participating and present. But for every question or qualifying question, right, that is chatted in the chat window, we'll put you an additional name in the hat for a better chance to win one of those gift cards at the end. So for the folks that don't know who CDVS is, go by Corporate Data and Voice Solutions, or CDVS. We are here to help customers find solutions that will improve their, whether it's customer service, communications, internally, externally. We take a consultative approach, so what we may find for your organization may not be similar to another organization. It all depends on what your organization is looking for to achieve, and then head towards that goal with you. We act as an extension of your team. If you choose to do business with us or through us, we'll continue in the process. So we don't just sign you up to a solution and then run off to another one, another opportunity. We stay with you and make sure you're receiving what you signed up for. We're an ongoing additional resource to your team. So quite often, we've been in business since 2003, by the way. Quite often we'll sign somebody up for a solution or implement a solution with them. And down the road, whether it's months down the road, years down the road, they'll come back to us and ask about other needs, other requirements that have come up in their organization. So we do take a high touch approach, and of course, right now with COVID, we're not touching, we're not even shaking hands. But soon, hopefully, we will be able to do that. We do have an extremely high retention rate, so we pride ourselves on that. Again, that's more about being there for not only the sales process, but through the whole implementation process and beyond. So we're passionate about what we do. And the foundation of our business is we tell it like it is. We have to do business with honesty, integrity, and accountability. So I think we have one more slide here. We want to be a partner, not just your vendor, right? So I think that kind of sums up what that means, right? And then of course we like to put a little funny at the end. So again, thank you for attending. I am going to stop sharing. I will turn it over to Terrence, where he is going to take it away.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Excellent. Well, just to be fair to myself, we all know the risks of asking me to start speaking. So, Joe, you should have known where I could have gone with that. But thank you, everybody. Like I said, my name is Terrence Sullivan. I'm the Territory Account Manager for Ruckus Networks. And Brendan, you mentioned you're out of Londonderry. I actually just moved out of Londonderry up to Hooksett, so we are in close proximity to each other. But I'm the Territory Manager for New England. I've been with Ruckus, it's my second stint, but overall about 6 years. And then we have our Senior Systems Engineer, Dean Nowitzki, on. So I'm going to take a few minutes just to kind of go into a little introduction, talk about that name change stuff, and then Dean's going to get really into the thick of stuff. So like I was going through some of the name change stuff, so Ruckus as a brand and as a product line has been the exact same, aside from adding switches and some onboarding solutions. through acquisitions. The Wi-Fi itself has been the same product line basically since the early 2000s, but we have been under ownership from Aris as a separate business unit. And then the last year, we were acquired, actually about 2 years ago, acquired by COMMSCOPE. We were brought under the fold to be one large company. After about a year feeling that out, they've decided to just let Ruckus do what it does best and go back out and start focusing again on the Wi-Fi networks and the edge switching. So just moving forward, CommScope will be the owner of Ruckus. We will be a subsidiary, but the Ruckus logo and the Ruckus dog are back, and we are all very happy about that. So usually where I start, it's been a very unique year, I guess I'll put it. I'm not saying that in a positive way, but we are obviously at the tail end of 2020. And a lot of Ruckus's story is around how we handle very difficult Wi-Fi, dense environments, coverage environments, a lot of interference. So a unique story to tell when we're all kind of working in a home office setting. Although, we have seen out in the field the last 9 months, people really moving to update their offices and schools to the latest and greatest, which when you guys, hopefully all of us get back into a normal setting, you will see the benefits of Wi-Fi 6 and 802.11ax, which is what we're going to spend some time on today. But to get back into Ruckus, I usually start with the history of the company, but not from a corporate perspective. It's really about the technology. So Ruckus started as a company called Video 54 in the early 2000s. The goal of that company was they produced this little box that was to stream video over Wi-Fi to your in-home TV. So obviously, sitting here in 2020, we're like, what's the big deal, right? We do that for phones and off our laptops. Early 2000s, very novel concept. And what it took was a very hyper-focused RF stream directly focused at the device we were speaking with, maintain the consistency and connectivity to actually provide video over Wi-Fi. So that company itself did not scale, but the technology that I just described is the exact technology that is BeamFlex Plus today in all of our access points. So essentially, and I'll let Gene get into the real in-depth part of it, but basically, if you're looking at any of our competitors' Wi-Fi environments, it essentially is like screwing a light bulb on the ceiling. You get a large omnidirectional coverage area. If you walk closer, you get a higher data rate. Further you get away, walk away, you get a lower data rate. Ruckus turns that into a flashlight. But when we are actually speaking to a client, we take all of that RF and all that energy and we focus it directly at the client we're speaking with at that time. And you get two major benefits. One, in an open area, because I can throw the RF that way, I can usually do about 2/3 the amount of access points for deployment, which means 2/3 the amount of switch ports, 2/3 the amount of failure ports. So it's a good story there, but where I really is around the density, because if I'm hyper-focusing that RF at the client I'm speaking with, I get a higher data rate for that client, which means I can service each client quicker and add capacity to each access point on my network. So that is the elevator pitch, if you will, for Ruckus. And a lot of those hardware and software components that we built in are now not only, we're still using them, but we're seeing a lot of benefits as we utilize them with Wi-Fi 6 and 802.11ax. So in that light, I'd like to turn this over to Gene, and he can get into a little bit of the technical side of this. And obviously, we will be on for the entire call. So if there are any questions, please feel free to ask them, and we'll answer them at the end.
All right. I'm on. Okay, so Gene Nowitzki, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Ruckus Wi-Fi 6, or what, in the standards is 802.11ax. So let's do a little bit of an overview. So I'm going to use an analogy from way back when when Wi-Fi kind of started with the 802.11a days. Back then, we would say that the 5 gigahertz is, we'd say the air is cleaner up there because the 5 gigahertz was introduced after the 2.4 gigahertz band. And the 2.4 gigahertz band had been started to get crowded. And that's where we're at today. The same analogy holds today, where not only is the 2.4 gig band crowded with, just regular Wi-Fi devices, as well as all the IoT devices that are out there now. 5 gig band has become oversaturated with the explosion of all these really smart devices, and it's starting to really limit the spectrum. Despite our best efforts to innovate, to mediate the interference and to optimize channel selection, the fact remains that there's just way too many devices for the amount of spectrum that is out there. So you can use this picture as that analogy. So the skyline shows the suburbs in the foreground, which is the 2.4 gigahertz, which is relatively crowded. The city, which is very dense smog, is a 5 gigahertz, lots of contenders for airtime. And then as we go up, that's where we get into other spectrums that's going to be available, and it becomes even less crowded up there. The sky is 6 gigahertz. It's wide open, clean. There is going to be some, we'll call it air traffic and turbulences to avoid, but relatively green space. Getting a hold of a large chunk of spectrum is not going to be a problem. So the need for this the new spectrum is a global problem. It's expected to get worse, and and as especially in home and with COVID, everybody's working from home. I know that I've experienced it here, where what I had didn't support all of us working from home. 2 kids doing remote learning, me doing this on a daily basis, and my wife working from home too. I had to change. I had to open up some more. I actually had to install more APs, and it just got it was crowded. So the Wi-Fi Alliance recently did a study on the Wi-Fi spectrum, and it found that we already are facing shortfalls by up to 500 megahertz of spectrum during peak usage times. In just 5 years' time, this is expected to grow to 1 gigahertz or more of spectrum. The problem is alleviated slightly by utilizing some DFS spectrum, which is some reserve spectrum that's in the 5 gigahertz space. But even then, we know that in some areas we just can't use that, like near airports. This DFS has to do with some spectrum that's being used by air traffic control and radar. So if you're near airports, it doesn't matter if this is opened up. If you try to use that DFS, it gets turned off. The study also found that about 75% of mobile data is expected to offload to Wi-Fi, putting an even greater strain on that 2.4 and 5 gigahertz band. With more spectrum, I'm missing my cues to load my bullets here. So with more spectrum, practical utilization of wider channels becomes more dependable and reliable, and with the ability to transfer more data reliably, we can see some new use cases and applications emerge to take advantage of this spectrum. Okay, so what is Wi-Fi 6, or some of the features that we're getting on a Wi-Fi 6 or 802.11ax? So it is supposed to take care of the challenges by making the use of the RF more efficient. While it's true that Wi-Fi 6 is designed to make more efficient in both those bands, but the reality is that these bands are already crowded with older devices that won't be able to support some of these. There's 8 features here that are part of Wi-Fi 6. there's a lot of older devices that won't take advantage of and can't take advantage of these features, and those devices are airtime hogs. The improvements of 1024 QAM and OFDMA extended range will definitely help with dense environments today, but they're still going to we're not going to be able to keep pace with the dependence for data and sheer numbers of connected devices that we're expecting to happen in the near future here. These 8 features are the most often talked about features in Wi-Fi 6. In the addition of the 6 gigahertz band, that is actually referred to as Wi-Fi 6E. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. So just real quickly, I'll briefly touch on these. I don't want to get too deep into the technical weeds on some of these features, but OFDMA and multi-user MIMO, this is technologies that are leveraged from the cellular world, which we know is very solid. OFDMA exploits the diversity in the frequency dimensions. It's great at handling short packets and makes use of big pipes without overhead by scheduling packets across some of the smaller chunks of the spectrum. Multi-user MIMO. Multi-user MIMO. This is going to be upload and download. In the past, it was just from the access point to the client. Now the client radios are going to be able to take advantage of it too, as well as with OFDMA. There's some power efficiencies where clients are going to be able to, they're using the term micro sleep, and just wake up on a schedule to transmit data. So that will, with IoT devices and with cell phones, that's going to help preserve battery life. So battery life for some of these devices are going to get much better. So 1024 QAM, we're going to get 25% boost in being able to get more bits per symbol. So you can think of this as a target. And what we've done, we've grown and gotten better at having that frequency, having that RF, that wave, that transmitting wave coming from the client or from the AP to the client and vice versa. You have to hit a certain quadrant in the antenna array on the device, and the more fine-tuned you can get, the more symbols and more representation of different symbols on that target. So we've gotten so good at this that within that antenna array, we have 1024 little different quadrants that we can hit, and that equates to a stream of ones and zeros, basically. So the tighter that gets, the higher the throughput and the more efficient that we get utilizing the bandwidth or the spectrum. BSS coloring allows spatial reuse and increase simultaneous transmissions, and it's going to help reduce the amount of co-channel interference. All right, so
hey, Gene.
Yeah.
Pete had a question. Which generation of devices would be configured for 5 gigahertz?
Well, 5 gig. So 5 gigahertz has basically been around for a very long time. I think the first 5 gig devices were in the mid 90s, right? But 5 gig, so 5 gigahertz and what you see on TV as 5G, that's not the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where the question is coming from?
I'm not sure. So when you let's stick to, I guess, Wi-Fi, right? So,
yeah, okay. So Wi-Fi, so 5 gigahertz has been around for a long time. 5G and it doesn't relate to speed. It's the frequency that the Wi-Fi is transmitting at.
yeah.
Okay. So we have 2.4 gigahertz, which is, it's that spectrum, that frequency. And then we have the 5 gigahertz, and now we have 6 gigahertz. And within those bands, the 2.4, 5, and 6, there's so many channels, and I'll call them channels, that are available. Okay. With the 2.4, they divide the channels up in 20 megahertz chunks. Okay. So with the 2.4 gigahertz, we really only have 3 available channels. Okay. And then with 5 gigahertz, there's 25. And when we go to 6 gigahertz, there's 59. Okay. So you can see that the pipe is getting bigger. Okay. And when I say the pipe, don't think of it as the amount of data that we can transmit. Okay. So think about an office building or a school that has APs that are deployed. Those APs that are close to each other, if I have AP1 and AP2, they can't be using the same channel. Okay. Because the device that's right between them is going to get confused. It won't know which one to talk to. That's called co-channel interference, okay, or adjacent channel interference. So what we need to do is AP1 will use channel 1, AP2 will use channel 7, okay? And then AP3, which is kind of near both of them, can use channel 11. Okay, so when we go to 5 gigahertz, there's 25 of those that are available. So you can see when you get a lot of APs deployed, the channel design it gets a little tricky, right? With the 2.4 and even with 5 gigahertz, there can be channel interference. So when you're at home and you bring up your phone and you look for Wi-Fi connections, you're going to see your neighbor, and it may be on the same channel as you. And that causes slowness. Yes.
And Gene, just real quick, just for anybody who's not overly familiar with co-channel interference, from a device perspective, essentially what your device sees is like if you're driving down the highway, listening to a radio station, you get too far and you start to hear that radio station get cut in half and start hearing a broadcast from a different state and stuff like that. That's basically what your device is trying to hear when it starts hearing two things set to the same channel on 2.4 or 5 gigahertz. So, it can be confusing to wrap your head around it, but basically that's what your device starts to see is that, when you're driving down the highway and you start to hear that coming up, that's basically what channel interference is.
Okay. It's harder for the client to actually receive and interpret what it's supposed to be getting. Okay.
Gotcha. Hey, Gene, sorry to interrupt. I do have a question from Sean here. Is Wi-Fi 6 full duplex? And a couple of parts of this. Also with Wi-Fi 6, are we now able to cut the cord in the office, or will Ethernet still outperform wireless? He knows and understands the theoretical speeds, but those tend to be under perfect circumstances.
Those are some excellent questions.
Yeah, very good questions.
So I could talk for an hour on this. I got 10 minutes left. So I'll real quick. So Ethernet is always going to outperform wireless. Okay. Because it's a closed environment. And it is shared, but the way that we do, the way the control is there, the speeds on Ethernet are almost always going to be better than what you get, what you'd be able to get on any RF. And that's just because you can't control the air. right? You can do so much to control that, and you can absolutely control what's inside that copper wire or that piece of fiber. Okay. And what was the first question again?
So is Wi-Fi 6 full duplex?
Well, yes and no. So it depends on the client, on the ability of the client. So if they have all the, I was talking about that upload and download. Yep. For multi-user MIMO. So if the client has properly implemented multi-user MIMO, yes, it will be. So we'll be able to be sending downstreams on one channel and upstreams on another. Okay. And it's going to take a little while before that happens, but yes, it is.
Gotcha. And so is 6 gigahertz available now?
Actually, yeah. So this slide, I wanted to talk a little bit about that on here, but yeah, the FCC has made it available. There are some access points coming out, and in fact, no, it's not on here. So here, what? So Wi-Fi 6, we do have a bunch of Wi-Fi 6 enabled access points already on the market. There's some that are coming out, but the Wi-Fi 6E, which we have one of our access points that's going to be available June timeframe. I can't really talk about it too much, but that is going to have a tri-radio in it. Okay, so it'll have the 2.4 gigahertz radio, the 5 gigahertz radio, as well as the 6 gigahertz radio. Okay, so that'll be available soon. And we talked a little bit about IoT and some of our older devices that didn't have. So IoT works on Bluetooth and Zigbee. There's in all these devices you see here, it says IoT and integrated IoT. That's a Bluetooth Zigbee radio in there. Prior to that IoT integrated radio being in the AP, all these APs have a USB port on them. There was an IoT dongle, okay, that had Bluetooth Zigbee radio in it. What I don't know for a fact, but my thinking here is that we're going to end up having a 6 gigahertz USB add-on, I guess you can call it, a module that you plug into the USB port on these devices that are only dual radio, the 2.4 and 6, or sorry, 2.4 and 5, and then you'll be able to add that 6 onto it. That's what my thinking is.
Okay. I do have a question from Philip. To take advantage of Wi-Fi 6 access points, which controllers would you recommend? Is the question, I guess, which controllers would be available to take advantage of?
All of our controllers, with the exception of the Zone Director. Zone Director is an older controller that is on its way out, being replaced by Smart Zone. Smart Zone has been around for a number of years, very well established, and that is also, Smart Zone is available in an appliance as well as in a VM, a virtual appliance. Okay.
Gotcha.
My recommendation. The way, and there's also the Ruckus Cloud, so we can control things through the Ruckus Cloud. My personal kind of, I'll call it a religion, is I like to have things under my own control. So having an appliance on site or having that virtual appliance on site is the way I like to do things. Our cloud is fantastic, and it's actually the same guts to it. The code that is in Smart Zone is the base code for our cloud offering. But I just like having things that I can go over and, I can control it. But, I am a little bit of a control freak. So it depends on resources that you have. It depends on, your methodologies and your kind of, it's a belief. So.
Okay. And I'm going to ask this question and then we got to wrap this up. But what about SCG200? S as in Sam, C as in cat, G as in good, 200. Are you
that Smart Cell Gateway?
Yes, that's a gate. Yes, that's Smart Zone Gateway. Yep.
So I'll have to check my brain, but I believe that was the actual service provider model number. I believe, but I can check that. But yeah, the SCG is part of the Smart Zone family.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can take this offline. Whoever asked that question, we can set up another call and we can go into real deep on that one.
Perfect. So that was Philip again, and he said thank you for the info. So
you're welcome, right, Philip.
We'll turn it back over to you, so you can wrap it up here.
Okay. So I'm on side 7 of 14. So oops, what did I do?
Well, do we want to just? I mean, if we got 2 minutes, you want to just finish up on the 750 and some of the stuff? I don't think you can.
So this is something I really wanted to point out. I'll go through this really, really quick. So the 750 is the first commercial AP to be certified by the Wi-Fi Alliance and is part of the test bed. So our engineering group is insanely proud of this. So any Wi-Fi 6 device that is certified has to be tested against the Ruckus 750. So any other, device, that's a pretty prestigious thing to get to be part of that test bed. Real quick, Terrence talked about beam forming versus, he didn't talk about beam or BeamFlex versus beam forming. So that all other vendors in the Wi-Fi industry, want to go about thinking of Wi-Fi as just Wi-Fi. It's just, air. But with BeamFlex, what Terrence was talking about is actually taking that signal and that energy and focusing it to a client. That is something that only we do. We have a patented technology on the antenna array to do this. So if you look through our portfolio, you'll notice that we don't have any external antennas. It's all an internal antenna array that takes that light bulb type of radiation to the actual flashlight. And there's 4,000 plus possible antenna patterns, which gets you, an extra wall and a half of wall being from one room to another worth of penetration in a normal environment. So, we can deploy on a less dense environment and support the same number of clients with the same type of performance that any other vendor would. So, this greatly reduces the amount of APs, as well as what Terrence said earlier, is Ethernet ports and things you need to manage, licenses, support contracts, all of that. We make it a lot better. Okay. So I was going to go from that into Ruckus Analytics, but we can leave it there, and I'll stop sharing. Okay.
And Joe, obviously, let us know, if anybody has any follow-up questions or wants to jump on a call with either myself or Dean. We're more than available, so just let us know.
Absolutely. Well, and you're sticking around till the end, correct?
Yep, we'll be on.
All right, fantastic.
Yep.
All right, the folks from Tierpoint, you are up.
Excellent.
You get off. Joe, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure I was off of mute. Excellent. So, Tara, do you want to share it, or you want me to share?
Yep.
So I guess introductions again, real quick. I'm Brandon Keeley. I'm a senior account executive at Tierpoint, and have on Tara Kovaleski as well. She's solution architect here at Tierpoint. Throwing it out to the group, is there anybody that's not familiar with Tierpoint? I guess ping the chat. Let us know if you're not, or if you are, feel free to make a comment. All right, so
You see the screen, Brandon? Are we good?
yeah, I can see it. Yeah, you can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So for those of you that don't know who we are, what I'm going to do is give you a quick high-level overview on Tierpoint, and then from there we're gonna switch it up a little bit. So what we're going to do is Tara is going to speak, and she will give really more of an overview on some of the trends from COVID, the impacts of this year, and then what we're seeing in the marketplace moving forward based off the analysts and what some of our clients are doing. So I think we'll give you a really good outlook as you head into 2021 based on your organization, how you guys are addressing things currently and this year, and what some of the expectations and what the analysts are talking about. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And then we'll hit on some of the solutions that Tierpoint does offer, and we'll take any questions that you might have. I've been here too with Tierpoint for about 13 years, mostly in the Northeast. Like I said, I live in New Hampshire, and then Tara is out of Pennsylvania, one of our solution architects who gets involved with opportunities, larger, more complex deals throughout the country, supporting us. We've got several architects on the team that work with the sales group. So Tierpoint, today, really, we understand that every company is different. Every company is in a different path to their IT transformation. And essentially, as your strategy evolves, we try to meet you where you are. And that's really the goal of this. Our tagline is we meet you where you are. We've got a vast network of data centers, cloud pods, really IT experts. We've got a very deep bench, and we can help companies from co-location, cloud, and onward, really help you grow and continue to support the business. Terry, go to the next one. So this is our map, our data center map. Really today in the industry, we are positioned as a leading data center and managed services provider, really helping clients enable hybrid IT solutions. And there's really no other provider that comes even close to us as far as amount of data centers, size, client, base, and just the solutions that we offer. So we're pretty unique from that aspect. We do have, probably one of the larger customer bases in the industry. We've got over 5,000 clients, as you can see. They trust us with their mission critical operations. Anything from SMB to mid-market, and we've got Fortune 500 companies as well that are in the portfolio in a lot of different verticals. I mean, some of our top verticals are finance, healthcare, and SaaS-based companies, but we do have, other verticals as well. And I think with the fact of, we've got a very large and geographically diverse footprint, you can see all the orange dots on the map. Those actually represent Tierpoint data centers. So those are our facilities. They're Tierpoint owned, operated. We're 24/7, 365 at all locations. And with 42 facilities today, it does make us pretty big. We also, all the data centers are all connected via our own, fiber and connectivity. So we do have many clients that leverage interconnectivity between sites if they have multiple sites. We also have multiple providers that are lit on net. So we're carrier neutral at every location, which is great for organizations that have, multiple locations, MPLS, SD-WAN. They need point-to-point circuits, latency type requirements. So those are some of the things that I wanted to mention there. And really, Our goal really is that with helping companies, we want to help you depending on how involved we get with management of your environment. But the bottom line is people are leveraging us. We've got highly resilient environments for critical business applications, and there's a lot of redundancy built into everything we do, from the data center of cooling, power, security, all compliance related type topics. So very deep bench as well. Of the of the 1,000 employees we have, about 800 or so of them are really technical guys and gals. So we go really deep as far as that goes. And this is everything we do, right? We don't do everything, but there's solutions here, and there's quite a few different things that we do. So we can get pretty deep and pretty granular for clients to help you fill gaps, and depending on what you're looking for, and where we can add value. One thing I like to say, and our partners, our clients really like this, is that a Tierpoint dollar is a Tierpoint dollar. So most companies don't know where they're going to go in 5 years. If you take anything from this today, definitely take this away, is that we have the ability to shift the spend at any time during an agreement with Tierpoint. You start with colo, maybe a year or 2 years into it, the organization strategy has changed, and you want to shift to cloud or maybe disaster recovery as a service. We can move that anytime. You're not locked in. So there's some nice advantages to that, because again, most people just can't predict, and nobody predicted COVID, right? So you try to be prepared as best as you can, have a plan, and then be able to execute. And we can help you guys make changes to your environment. So with this being said, I won't spend too much time on this, but these are some of the things we offer. It starts with the colo. I mentioned that, half cabinets, cages. From a cloud standpoint, we really are neutral here. So we try to work with our clients to design the right solutions for their applications and make it as seamless as possible for them to leverage cloud. And we do hosted private cloud. We work with all the OEMs, whether it's Hyperconverged, Nutanix, VxRail, or just traditional Dell, HP, NetApp, etc. We work with all of them. We have expertise across the board. So we usually build those out for clients that have certain compliance requirements or invasive auditors, and it needs to be dedicated. Financial industry, sometimes healthcare, EMR, EHR. We do have a VMware-based cloud too. We call it our multi-tenant cloud, and you buy that by the drink. And so it gives some of that flexibility and scale, but you don't have to refactor all your applications like you maybe would for public cloud. We do support public cloud as well, Azure, AWS, and we can do a hybrid of these things, and colo and mix and match. So it's really, really interesting. We try to guide our clients into choosing, again, the right cloud for each business need, and help them to optimize the cloud as best as they can for their applications. On top of these platforms, whether it's cloud or colo, we can also offer disaster recovery. We have full turnkey options depending on recovery point, recovery time objectives, and we have a wide array of backup solutions too. Things like Veeam, we're a Veeam Cloud Connect partner. We use Commvault. We also even offer space at our data centers. We have a lot of financial and insurance companies that leverage our data centers for business continuity for people. In the event of where their people go, and sometimes they might want to have critical teams. We offer that at all the sites. I'd say lastly is just with those three type of pillars, you've got security and compliance. Some things are built in, some things are added on. We do network, as I mentioned. We have express routes, direct connect for many of our data centers. We've got on-ramp companies like Megaport and PCCW that are lit at our data centers if you need to have that type of access. And managed services. So to fill gaps, it's one of the themes we'll talk about today too with COVID. A lot of organizations have downsized, and they've changed some of their operations of how they do business, and they might have to lean on organizations like a Tierpoint or an MSP to fill gaps. And that could be things just doing like patching or DBA or help desk. These are all things that we do offer, and again, we can be flexible like a dial, I like to say. So we don't want to, come in and take everything over, but we can help to fill gaps and be an extension of your team, essentially. And the last piece, I think, is consulting services. So we do have a full team of consulting that does professional services for assessments, cloud readiness assessments, migrations, security, planning, disaster recovery planning, pen tests, vulnerability assessments. So that is a lot. We'll get you guys a copy of this to follow up. And looks like there's a question coming in. So
Yeah,
Sean,
yeah. You want me to read it off to you?
yeah, I can see it right here. So the question is, if you were talking to a board of directors who do not embrace cloud computing, what would you say to them to make them understand why they should? It's a good question. Depends on who the board of directors are, right? Old school, they want to own what they pay for. Yeah, it's a great question. It's something that we're faced with all the time. I mean, you have to have buy-in, I think, to some extent, to get these projects approved. What we could do is, depending on Sean, I don't know what your vertical is, and I could definitely catch up with you offline for it. You're manufacturing, so we've got some great use cases and case studies. But I think when you're talking to a board of directors like that, you probably have to go to some of the key factors. A lot of times at a C-level, executive level, it's about risk, right? Risk is a big factor. Security. Obviously, in some cases today, they don't want to spend more money. I think the notion of going to the cloud is going to save you money is a farce to some extent. That was an initial notion, not that was stated, but I think you have to look at the overall value TCO of what you have. Security was a perceived inhibitor to moving to the cloud, and that's kind of gone. A lot of these clouds are much more secure than what organizations could build on-prem. You take Microsoft as an example. They've become one of the security leaders in the space. So you're just using like O365, maybe even as like a cloud example. They have more security built into that solution today and tools available than companies could do and afford to do by piecemealing together different solutions. So it's a complex question. I don't know if I really gave you the great answer. I think it's a little more detailed. Tara, you want to add anything to that question?
Sure. What I would include there, Brandon, is a lot of times in those scenarios, we work with the client. So we would work with you to try to develop an ROI. So we can go through different expenses depending on where your services are located today, if they're at your location on premises or if they're already in a data center, and try to look at it from a cost perspective as well as a benefit perspective. So if folks in the IT department weren't focusing on managing the actual hardware and the systems and the day-to-day maintenance of the environment, and we're able to focus more on developing new applications or working toward initiatives that could help grow the business, then we're able to have those types of business level conversations with, an example of like the board of directors to try to show where IT can become more of a growth center versus a cost center, which is in a lot of cases, that's how it's viewed.
Yep. Okay, great. Sean said thank you, and we'll be catching up in the future. So Tara, you can go to the next slide. So that's all we wanted to talk about for Tierpoint today. Again, if you guys have specific questions on some of the solutions, great. We did want to talk about impacts from COVID this year, what we've seen, and then ultimately what our clients are doing, conversations that we're having, and then expectations for 2021. We've got some good analysts, feedback here, and Tara's going to take over.
Okay, thank you. So just a couple of things. A lot of this is statistics and information, and hopefully it will resonate with things that you might be seeing in your organizations. Earlier in the year, we started focusing with clients, and some of these early ones are early 2020 types of analysis, but folks started out with what were their challenges. So this is a late 2019, early 2020, where folks were saying their largest challenges were trying to keep their IT infrastructure up to date, as well as upgrading, outdated software. So they've been using certain systems, certain software for a really long time, and trying to stay on top of all of the patching and upgrading proves to be a large challenge. And then in addition to that, balancing projects. So IT tasks versus improvement projects. And I think this is a trend that's gone throughout the year, where all of a sudden IT tasks became at the forefront when folks needed to move very quickly to a remote environment. And a lot of improvement or infrastructure type projects that they might have been planning to happen this year got put on the back burner. So that was a lot of what we saw. The highest trends there. And then the last trend here, it's not noted quite as high, but I think as the year went on, Brandon mentioned this, was security. So following best security practices, ensuring that their environment was locked down to the best of their ability to try to mitigate anything that could happen within their business. So what folks had found is that there was a gap, right? They're looking to move to cloud. They want to move to cloud. They're seeing that, trying to do some outsourcing in some manner could be advantageous to their business. But what they found is that they needed some help. So what this does, 86% of businesses identified that they had some type of skills gap associated with implementing cloud. Everything from expertise on the platforms to security, and then bringing in some of the newer technologies, artificial intelligence, analytics, and then how did they get some of their legacy or older applications and be able to move them into a virtual type environment. And these are all places that we have conversations with clients every day, and we can bring expertise to help them get to where they're looking to go. And so everyone's in a different place in their, we call it their, transformation journey. But depending on what type of assistance they need or they don't need, we're really able to customize solutions for clients to be able to bring them the tools that they need to get to the end game that they're planning for. So some of the other trends that we saw in the data center industry, to be specific, was around, sorry, I'm going to try to talk a little bit louder, was around data centers themselves. And so Brandon shared, we do everything from co-location. So folks that, and sometimes in the cloud journey, that's where it starts, just moving the equipment outside of your office premises and moving it into another location. And then from there, as hardware becomes a little bit outdated, you start shifting and maybe outsourcing that to allow a company like Tierpoint to provide some of that hardware for you, or maybe come in and do a little bit of the management or even the patching of the OSs for you. And that's how sort of the outsourcing journey starts for a lot of companies. In other cases, it may just be dev test. They start to say, well, we're going to outsource dev test because it's really a non-intrusive type of thing. And if something were to happen, it's not going to be impacting to the business. So what we found in this survey, which was from Gartner, was that 60% of enterprises said they were going to focus on centers of data rather than traditional data centers. So they're more focused on their applications and the data that's driving that, more so than where that data is living, or needing to keep up the traditional data center where you have a room and you need to be concerned about cooling and power and redundancy and all of those things in your specific actual location. Something else that was really interesting was that they felt 70% of the data would be created outside of the data center or cloud. So a common term that we've seen is data tonnage, right? Folks never come to us to ask us to decrease the amount of storage that they're using in an environment. They just keep accruing more and more and more. And so as things grow for them, and as the amount of data that they're accumulating continues to grow, where artificial intelligence is coming in is the ability to take all of that data and wrap some type of analytics around it so that they can use that data to help support initiatives for the business. And so we're seeing a lot of that. And even though we may not be able to get into the applications that would drive that artificial intelligence, we're looking to give them the infrastructure and some of the tools that will enable them to do those types of analytics that will help their business in the long run. So just wanted to touch on security. This has been a very hot topic for many years, but I think coming into this year, it's been even more so than any other because of the challenges of having to manage folks that are working remotely and ensure that they were then abiding by all of the corporate security policies that were a little bit harder to implement in a segregated workforce type scenario. And so a lot of companies have implemented this year more comprehensive security training awareness programs. I don't know if any of you have seen that, where you might be getting more training on don't click on this, and be sure you're locking down your computer, and be sure no one can get to your information. Be sure you're using secure VPN, things like that. And a very interesting statistic, I thought that second bullet was that in this Forrester report, which came from earlier in later in 2019, was that 40% of global workers indicated that they would ignore or go around their corporate information security policies because they thought it was easier to get their work done that way. So that's a terrible statistic for any folks that really focus on security, and their role is primarily making sure that none of the hackers or any of the bad actors are trying to get into their network, is seeing that a lot of folks just want to skip it because they think it's easier. So there's been a lot of challenges for folks in the IT world this year, and in previous years as well, but I think this year in making sure that their workers are driving toward following the security policies that need to be implemented. And then one of the things that we've seen as well is that patching is going to be one of your best, most impactful activities toward preventing any type of security breaches. So when folks like Windows and Microsoft and SQL are releasing patches for any type of threats that they're finding, it's really important to stay on top of implementing all of those patches to ensure that you have the most secure practice for your business. So shifting the focus just a little bit toward 2020 and COVID, and how did that impact businesses? And I'm sure a lot of you are seeing this. What we've seen here at Tierpoint is that folks in engagements, and this is from a Forrester study, but things are more need-based and outcome-based. So when we're talking to clients now, we're finding it's because they're looking for something and they may have something specific already in their mind. So a lot of times it's not where they're just maybe information gathering, or we're having conversations about projects that are happening, maybe 18 or 24 months out. They're really looking for something that they can work on in the near term, which is more so than sometimes, Brandon and I might work on opportunities for a year or two with the client because they need to start the planning now for something that they might be looking to do at the end of 2021, or they're looking to implement it in their 21 budget. Obviously, e-commerce has blown up. It was already large, but I think we can see, especially in this time of the year, if anyone has done any holiday shopping, mine has been largely online. And so I think not only the retailers, but a lot of folks are finding that everything with e-commerce has driven their strategy to make sure that their online presence and their online support has been stronger than ever. And then I think also investing into one possible, right? So a lot of folks, I think, were really hesitant about employees working from home, or was that going to impact productivity, or how do I value my employees, and making sure that there's a good, life work balance, those types of things. And so I think we've been challenged in a lot of ways this year to find answers and resolution to all of those things. One thing that was very interesting, and I've seen this in a couple of different studies that I was taking a look through, was that if you look at this chart over here on the right, in this chart, 70%, 43 felt that their business continuity plan going into the business needs at the beginning of the pandemic was strong, that they felt very solid about what their business continuity plan was and being able to implement it. And so I thought that was a very interesting statistics, because a lot of companies had to shift very, very quickly in a matter of days or weeks to be able to move their employees to working to a very different environment that a lot of them were used to. And so it seemed like companies were feeling like they were much more prepared to be able to do that. Now, what also is very interesting, and I'd be interested, I wish we were in a room so we could talk this through a little bit more, but 64% say that they're going to keep their remote work situation permanent. So they've changed to a remote work situation, and they're finding that the increase and 75% of their workforce is being very productive remote. And I think maybe some businesses that might have been opposed to it previous are surprised by that. We've seen a lot of impact there with clients needing additional bandwidth for folks to be able to access the systems that they might have that are in an office or in a specific location, because there's a lot more VPN. We've seen a lot of folks, because of the reduction in office footprint, looking to move their data centers, if they were on site in their location, out of their location, because they're finding that the need for the actual building is not as much. And then in addition to that, they're making changes to their business strategy, and they feel that now is a really good time to do that. So a lot of initiatives that they're taking for procedures or different methodologies that they're using, they're finding that they really want to continue to implement those, and it's going to drive their technology choices into the future. So you can see we found that there's a lot more virtual desktop interest. Folks want to implement things where they can give folks access not only for security, but for access for their employees to utilizing virtual desktops, or being able to ensure that things are more accessible. And that's where the cloud comes into play a little bit more. So they're having more access globally to be able to do their job. A couple of other additional statistics that were interesting. The remote cost of an average data breach increased by about $137,000. Now that's a really big number to begin with what the cost of a breach is to a business. But because of the remote workforce, it increased even higher. And so folks, needed more security licenses, ensure that their employees had VPN access, ensure that they had their firewalls that were providing the access, and public access were, could handle the throughput of all of the additional bandwidth from the outside users. And a statistic that for folks, I know a lot of us use Zoom, maybe we hadn't used Zoom previous, but they increased 353.7% year over year. So they added over 183,000 enterprise customers just this year. So Zoom had a huge year thanks to COVID. And then lastly, and I'll turn it back to Brandon. I know we're coming up, I think, on our time here in a few moments, but something else that was interesting is spending in most cases coming into the crisis and now looking forward to 2021. The bulk of folks feel that their spending in terms of IT is either not going to change, or it may even slightly increase. So this middle, looking at what happened in 2020 and what's going to be happening in 2021, really didn't shift all that much. As a matter of fact, the increase spending went up slightly. So it's not stopping folks from making an investment in their IT. I think folks have realized how important this is, and it's going to become more top of mind and more important for clients to be able to ensure that they can do things online and their folks are accessible. So I don't think that we're going to see that trend decrease. So I'll turn it back over to Brandon. We wanted to talk through some of the different things that we worked on with clients this year that we saw.
Yeah, thanks, Tara. And by the way, are there any other, I don't know if you guys can hear me well. Getting a little feedback on my side. So I don't know if anybody had any questions with any of the content, but if you do, please chime in and put something in the chat with any questions. If you guys would like a copy of this, I'm sure we're going to get it out to everybody, but there's a lot of good data points in there from Gartner, from Forrester, which you can bring back to your organization if you like. And, we can have obviously additional discussions with you, but Tara's covered it. I mean, the theme of this, again, through COVID, go back, Tara, one page. So just, we hit on a lot of this through the presentation itself, but these were, again, the things that we were seeing, and it's pretty obvious, but again, the downsizing of the physical office space. We've seen a lot of, if you're in the commercial real estate business right now in downtown Boston, you're hurting. A lot of companies were foregoing their leases. They've decided to, move to more of a remote model. If they need community space, they rent a hotel or a room when they need it. And then Tara mentioned that statistic that 63%, Tara, 60-something% of organizations plan to continue to work in the fashion that they were. I mean, that's pretty interesting to me. So a lot of companies have figured it out and said, hey, this works pretty well. And I think, quality of life for the employees where they don't have to commute, is something else to consider. And if they can get the job done, we've seen that a lot more people have been far more productive. They're probably working more. I know that I am, and most of you probably are too. If you're in IT, you almost like never stop working. You guys and gals probably working on the weekends and all different sorts of projects. But I know you got to put time in almost to take a break because you're in front of the computer and it's you don't have that commute time or any of that downtime, and you gotta build it in. So we've seen a lot of organizations again moving their colo, because part of it might be with working remotely. They might have restrictions to the office to get in, right? If you only have one IT guy or two IT people that are doing the day-to-day stuff, what happens if they can't even get to the office? What do you do then? So a lot of things can be done remotely, but still, if they need to replace stuff. So we've seen a lot of that. And then just the remote, we've covered it, added network, telephony, hardware needs, software to support. We did see some organizations. There's a company right out of Salem, New Hampshire, actually, one of our customers. They're in the retail space, and they used to have stores, and they've decided this year they closed all their storefronts, and they've moved to a online model. And with that, they had furloughs and they downsized, and they did lay some people off. So they shifted the way they want to do business. They used to do like a co-location, and they've moved into an environment where their hardware was coming up, but they also just didn't have the staff and the skill set anymore. So with shifting responsibilities and projects as well, with people moving around, you might need to augment with maybe some managed services and just some of the basic stuff of us doing, like watching the blinking lights, the blocking and tackling, as I call it, break fix of infrastructure. Sometimes that can be pretty valuable to organizations, and they can focus on the applications and what they do for business. If you're in, software company, and you guys have clients and you're supporting like billing applications for financial industry or something like that's your business, and not necessarily in the business of doing IT. So we've seen a lot of asks for that across the board. And then security, as Tara mentioned, I mean, a lot of mandates from compliance and just best practices within organizations to support, the different model and the new workforce, right? The new environment. So, that's continued to happen. You don't want to have, shadow IT, and then you've got all different things, mobile device management, this, that, et cetera. So a lot of different pieces here, but those are probably some of the big ones we've seen. And then, to help that, again, we've talked about some of the solutions. I mentioned just a couple of the vendors here. We're using 8x8 platform today. 8x8 is another great partner and vendor that CDVS works with. And, you got Zoom, and you got a whole bunch of these different platforms for telephony and conferencing. 365 is something that, that we offer as well, big Microsoft partner. And, right out of the gate, we saw a lot of people adding licenses. If your business was growing and thriving.
Brandon,
yeah,
I do have to cut you off. We're at quarter past, and we haven't even done the raffles. So
yeah, no problem. So that's it, guys. Appreciate your time, and again, any questions, let us know. Thank you.
All right, sorry about that. And
Okay.
Obviously, great content. And if whoever's sharing can stop sharing for me, that'd be great. All right, so I'll go back on camera. So thank you, and obviously we'll be in touch. But if anything specific comes to mind to the attendees, please reach out. Let us know. Seemed like there was a lot of interest with various discussions here. We definitely had to cut Gene off a little bit early with all the great questions that we had with with his content. So Gene, apologize, but I think we got a lot out of what you were able to present to us. So it's all about the learning. That's what we bring to these. That's why we bring these to the people that want to join us. So thank you. What we'll do now is we'll do the two raffles. We've been putting people's names in. So the first one is Sean Donnelly. So Sean, you've won the first raffle. And then the second one is Jake Baranski. Hopefully I got that right. So we'll be in touch with everybody one way or another for your Grubhub cards. But definitely Jake, Sean, will be in touch for your raffles. So we're a little over. Thank you very much for hanging in there. Tierpoint, Ruckus, thank you so much. Thank you for helping us put this together and supporting us this month.
Thank you.
Everybody. Happy holidays.
Thank you, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, everyone.
Happy holidays,
folks.
everybody.
All right, thank you.